Strymon have been in the process of updating their Nixie software editor for quite a while now. They've just released an update that adds support for the BigSky MX, and I wanted to take a look at both the editor and the way it integrates with multiple Strymon pedals at the same time. I've got the DiG V2 running into the BigSky MX at the moment. I'm using the USB-C ports on each pedal to connect to my computer, and as you can see in the Nixie software editor, it's detecting both pedals, and I can click on either of them and edit all of the available parameters. I can get into things like the global setup, preset management, IR management on the BigSky MX. All of that works relatively well, and we've got two main views over here. You can see kind of all the current pedals you've got connected, or you can sort of focus on them. For example, if you're in this mode, you can like edit the virtual pedal over here, and it's going to reflect what you would do on the real pedal. So if you wanted to change the tap tempo or something, change the mix, you can do that. Let's hear the DiG. I'm running this lead preset on here, which is the 12-bit mode. I've got a quarter note and dotted eighth note delay. I am running in parallel, as you can see here on the patch setup page. There's also a global setup page where you can play around with MIDI, the bypass mode, the status of the expression jack, whether you use it for an external expression pedal or for TRS MIDI, and whether you've set this up for instrument or line level. On the MX, I think I'm just running a very simple plate reverb over here. So yeah, just a single reverb over there. Let's have a quick little play around. If I wanted to change to a different preset on the DiG, I've got my preset list over here. For example, let's go to this chorus preset that I've set up. The good old ADM mode set up for a dotted eighth note delay over there. Let's try this preset where I'm using some quite long delays. I think I'm using the ping pong mode over here, and let's change to a different preset on the MX and go to like a combo of, say, the Cloud and the Cloudburst over here. This is a preset I put together in the main demo that I did of it. This is the Cloud effect type over here. It's running in series into the shimmer reverb. If we take a look on reverb number 1 at the effect, you can see the amount of ensemble effect. So that's going to be like the Cloudburst style effect in there that I can dial in. If I go back to the general page over here, I've got the decay, I've got things like the pre-delay, the tone, the amount of modulation on there. What I find interesting is that I would expect to see a mix control here on this main page for Reverb 1, obviously because it's a dual reverb pedal and you've got different routing options. They've chosen to put the mixer over here. I just find that a little bit odd, to be honest. I would much rather you had some of these controls for each reverb in this blank space over here. And we'll kind of get to some of my complaints and my feedback with the way this works, because there's definitely a lot of quirks with this. But for now, let's just have a listen to that big ambient ping pong delay into the combination of Cloudburst and shimmer. This is pretty epic. Sounds amazing. Of course, we know these pedals sound amazing. One thing that I do find slightly annoying is that if I go to a preset, say over here, and I don't know, I do something really basic, like I just toggle the foot switch on and off, then it will show up that the preset has changed even if I don't save it. So I go to another preset, let's say this plate preset over here. I'm just going to press, let's do the mix. I'll just turn that up slightly. You can see now that it says changed. And if I change to another preset over here, it should basically discard those settings, right? It hasn't saved anything, but it still says that the preset has changed. And if you're editing a bunch of different presets in here and say like just tweaking the mix control and then saving things, well, that can be pretty annoying on there if you want to discard anything. So I do find that choice a little bit odd on there. The other thing that I find annoying on here with the way the editor is laid out, and you can kind of see where I'm going with this video, so strap in. Let's say I go to this Hall preset over here, and let's just say I want to come over here and I want to change the mix. I want to set it to like 50%. Well, my instinct would be to type 50, but of course these values here don't go from 0 to 100. They're not a percentage. They go up to 255 over there. So I guess there's 256 values. I'm guessing they're probably MIDI mapped or something like that. So yeah, if I want the mix at 50%, I can't just type in 50, and I may just be an absolute dingus and I can't find the setting in here to change that back to a percentage setting, but I can't see anywhere where you can do that. So that would be nice in the next update, Strymon. If you're watching this and listening, change it so that things like the mix control are 0 to 100, so that they are percentages. Give us that option on there, because that's very intuitive. I don't want to think, oh yeah, halfway is 128. Awesome, now I've got that. So, I mean, the Hall sounds great. Luckily, I can live with all of this stuff because this thing sounds good, but it is that extra layer of just kind of clunk, especially when their hardware is so well designed. Now, let's say I'm happy with the total amount of mix on there and I want to save this. If I hit right over here, that will let me confirm the changes. And look at this, everything disappears where it said changed. However, if I wanted to say set the overall mix, I don't know, a little bit higher, let's go 140, and I come up here and I go to save, well, it gives me the option to rename the preset, which I don't want to do. If I choose a location to save it in, like say on Hall, I'll hit save, and then it changes the name to Hall 1. I'm assuming that's a bug, but again, that's a little bit annoying on there. So if I'm saving it up here, the behavior is different to saving it down here. I'm going to have to go back and rename this just to Hall over here. So yeah, just a little bit of clunk happening there when we're playing around with the editor on the MX. I do like that the IR manager is baked in over here. So you can see on the hardware, there's my IRs. I've got a bunch of weird IRs in here as well. And I've actually got a preset, this PCM 70 preset over here, where I'm using Reverb 1 for a circular style delay. So I'm using, as you can see here, it just says impulse. It doesn't tell me what impulse. I've got to go over to effect where it says circular delay, and then Reverb 2. Again, I've got to go over to effect, and I'm using this Reverb style impulse over there. I'm routing them in parallel, and you can see I've set the overall mix on each of them. So that should be all good with the dual routing. Again, I just wish I had the ability when I'm on the general page to see the name of the impulse and the overall mix. Like, why can't the impulse name just be over here and the mix be under there? Hopefully some feedback they can implement over there. But, you know, with a bunch of dirt, this does sound really, really good. So I've had a couple of complaints there. One thing that I do really appreciate about having an integrated editor for this and not separate editors, like the DiG needs its own software editor, the MX needs its own software editor, is if I want to change the preset on the DiG now, let's say I've got that lovely PCM 70 delay and reverb, I can just come over here and I go, hey, you know what? I've got all my DiG presets over here. Let's bring up the chorus on the DiG. Now I've got a stereo chorus feeding that circular delay and reverb. That's a pretty greasy combination. I really like that. These two pedals do sound fantastic together with one another. Regarding the app, there are these quirks in here. And another one that I've just noticed is, say in the DiG, I can actually plug in the time for delay number 1 over here numerically. Say I wanted 600 milliseconds of delay. Look at that. I can enter 600 milliseconds of delay. If I set up the second delay, however, in free mode, then I can't enter another delay value again. It's got these values from 0 to 255. So if I wanted to say run a really short delay with some modulation into a longer delay, so have like a combination chorus and delay on there, I can't really set up the exact times that I want on there. Furthermore, this kind of feel like this entire space here could be utilized slightly better, and you could add things, for example, like the configuration for the delays on this main delay page over here. Like, look at this. There's a bunch of space just sitting here doing absolutely nothing. Give me a nice big menu on there that lets me configure the delays. Also, I think there's a bug with the config selection at the moment. Like if you select anything except series, it just kind of slaps back to series. So look, now I've changed that preset on there apparently. So I'd have to basically power the pedal off and load it up with something. So some definite frustrations there as a user, but preset management, IR management, general tweaking mostly works pretty well. The DiG does have a couple of bugs in there. The MX, I think, is sounding fantastic. So let's do this. Let's go over to this LT lead preset on the DiG. I think that's a good always on one. Let's go back over to the BigSky. You can also view everything like this as well if you find that easier. So you had 3 or 4 Strymons plugged in, which I know a lot of people do. So let's dial in something way over the top and crazy. Let's set up a blank patch over here. So I'll start with this blank. And for the first reverb, or maybe let's do this. Let's run 2 reverbs in parallel. So we'll use, for the first reverb, what do I want over here? How do I get this? I need to go to general so I can select the type. Again, this is just that extra little layer of clunk that I wouldn't expect from Strymon. Their hardware is so user-friendly and great to use, but this software just feels like they haven't quite nailed it just yet. So let's do this. Let's set up the chorale over here. So I'm going to go for the decay. And again, I can't just type in. Can I type in a delay? Can I go like 8,000 milliseconds? No, I can't type in 8,000 milliseconds. That's really dumb. This is making me really frustrated now that I'm doing this. So yeah, that's close enough on there. Let's do this. Let's add a little bit of pre-delay over there. I'll turn the tone down. Have plenty of modulation. Let's just check out what this sounds like at the moment. I can't complain too much though when you can get sounds like that out of that combination on there. The MX really is such an amazing sounding pedal, and the nonlinear mode, the cloud mode, the shimmer mode on there, the impulse possibilities on there are pretty fantastic. One very cool thing about the BigSky MX being able to load reverb IRs is that you can load cab IRs into it as well. So what I've done here is I've set up a fairly straightforward preset where I'm using my free cab IR that you can grab from the video description. I've just loaded it into the MX. I have set it up so that I've got 100% decay. I haven't played around with any of the tone or anything like that on there. I have it at full mix which should say 100% on there. Again, Strymon, I know you're watching this, so give me that option. And then I'm just running it in series into the room reverb with a little bit of mix on there. So if we bypass this thing and we just have a listen to like an uncabbed sim amp tone, it's not going to be very nice. So it's a nice little add-on there that you can use this as a cab sim. There are also the I think there's 3 built-in cab sims over here. If we go to the globals on the MX, yes, you can see cab filter. So yeah, you can use up one of the reverb slots as an IR loader on there, which is something I was curious about. I never got around to trying it out there. Aside from all of that, hopefully the things that I've mentioned in this video, Strymon take as constructive criticism and the things that they can work into a future Nixie release on there. I think a really good example of a fantastic software editor that gives you everything that you want, balances out the, say, like basic or ideal parameters with the advanced parameters would be something like Axe Edit for the Fractal products, or the Eventide H90 editor, or something like HX Edit for the Line 6 Helix. This is kind of doing its own thing, and I get that there is the challenge of having to manage multiple devices on there, especially if you had a whole pedal board full of Strymons. It is really, really cool that you could hook all of them up with USB-C into this and just edit them on the go. However, I feel like there's just a bunch of streamlining that could be done. So hopefully in the future and the near future, because people have waited a long time for this, that they integrate some of those things in there. And also there's a few little bugs in there that I pointed out as well. Again, this is a free add-on. Like, you don't buy a BigSky or a DiG because of the software editor. You buy them because you can open the box and get amazing sounds out of them without the software editor. So take all of this with a pinch of salt, but I feel like a company like Strymon, they normally do things really well. They never do things by halves. And if they can bake all of these improvements in there, then they will have a super slick experience for people who are using their pedals. For now, I want to hear from you. What Strymons are you using, and have you tried out Nixie, and have you run into some of the frustrations, or have you found it pretty straightforward? Like, it's a great preset manager on there, the IR management. You know, I've spent a lot of time complaining in here, and I've said that before, but it's like 85, 90% there, in my opinion. I think that last 10 to 15% of polish would really make this an amazing product and really bring it into line with a bunch of other units out there when it comes to their software editors. But again, at the end of the day, you don't buy a Strymon for the software editor, you buy it for the tone. And luckily, the tones are already in the box. We already know that. We've got plenty of videos with the DiG and the BigSky MX, and you will see plenty more. So let me know what you want to hear. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, you can support me directly via Patreon, or you can check out some of my music. For now, I'm going to play all out with some more lush tones. Have a good one.